Well, welcome to our lesson of Ace Every Answer with the race strategy. I know that we learn about race and have used it for quite a while, but with our progress monitoring, we practice race every 2 weeks. And I wanted to make sure that race was a second nature to us. So I created this video as a chance for us to go ahead and practice whether or not we had a flexible instruction day or not. So you guys are going to have the chance to watch this video and be able to ask me any questions in the classroom. Some of you will get to do this assignment later in person also. And we work on these discussions all the time. But I wanted to take an old progress monitoring after we've reviewed this strategy and take it apart and then work on a new progress monitoring. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So first we're going to name the strategy. So race. What does that strategy really mean? So what is race? Race is a helpful tool that helps us write open-ended constructed responses. So why should I use race? Oops. I apologize. It teaches us what to do as good writers naturally. So I know some of you are like, why do I need this? Well, you need this because you're going to need to be a good writer, not just in seventh grade, but you're going to need to be a good writer in eighth grade and ninth grade and 10th grade. And even as far in the grades as Rez and I are. So we want you to have this tool so that you can do what you need to do. So just understand that's why we're using race. That's why we go over it so much. And many of you have a writing goal where you need to use this. All right, so what is race? We're going to restate the question in a complete sentence, answering all parts of the question. We're going to cite evidence from the text by explaining how your evidence supports your answer. So, what does RACE stand for? Restate keywords, answer all parts of the question, cite text evidence, and explain your answer and edit it. Meaning that if you've explained your answer and you went, oh, maybe that doesn't make sense, fix it. All right. So how do I do it? How do I do each step? How do I restate my keywords and my answer? Answer all the parts of my questions, cite text evidence, and then explain my answer. All right. So how do I restate my keywords? So all questions should have specific keywords. So my tip for you is to find one or two important keywords from your question and put them in your answer. So, if the question is mostly about volcanoes, the word volcano should be in your answer. Now, I went ahead and pulled the last progress monitoring example that I know many of you did, and it was a writing on volcanoes. So when I found this slide, I kind of smiled and laughed. So the question is, what are the different types of volcanoes and what happens when one erupts? So, what are the different kinds of volcanoes? So restate the question. There are how many different types of volcanoes? There are 3 different kinds of volcanoes. Could be one of the possible answers. There are 3 different types of volcanoes, and they're active, dormant, and extinct. But really, either way, because you're going to go ahead and answer that question a little further. So if you just want to say there are 3 types of different volcanoes, you've restated the question. How do I answer all parts of the question? Right now, in the papers we're practicing on, there's one question mark normally, one question. But as you're in geography, world history, you're in science, you're in ELA, you're going to find there's multiple question marks. And so if there's two question marks, there's probably two questions. So you're probably going to need to have two answers for the two questions. All right. So, C, how do I cite text evidence? So here are some sentence starter ideas. According to the text, it says, the author states that in the text, it says, paragraph two says, or paragraph whatever, explains that. E, how do I explain my answer at the end? Use one of these sentence starters. Overall, this explains why I think. All in all, this is why. This is why I believe that. These reasons explain how. All right, this is something we need to stop doing. Are you ready? What's the theme of the story? Friendship. What do we think is wrong with this? It's only one. I know that I said that really, really soft. It's only one word. My man is very unhappy. It is only one word. It's not a complete answer. If I were telling the story, and I'm going to use my favorite character, my favorite Disney character, Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin, they're friends. We know this. Or Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, we know they're friends. If I ask what is the theme of their story and you just said friendship, friendship has it has a subject but no verb. There is no like there's not it's not a sentence. It is not a complete thought. What we need to start doing is questions like what is a character trait that describes the main character? How do I know this? How many question marks? Two. A character trait that describes John is curious. I know this because in the beginning of the story, he was always getting trouble for asking questions and daydreaming. This explains how I know that John was very curious. A very happy man. This is a complete answer using race. All right, let's put it into practice. So I'm going to do this for our guided practice where we're going to do this together. And then you guys are going to do the exact same sort of practice on a separate article called Going Green. So let's read our article first. So traveling westward, the first transcontinental army, is often known as the Internet of its age. By having a means to communicate from east to west, businesses were finding an opportunity to grow and profit in ways they never dreamed of possible. The construction of the railroad allowed people to travel faster and safer. It allowed goods to be shipped across the country in as little as a few days. This was a vast improvement compared to the months traveling in wagons from East Coast to West Coast. Wow. So my constructed response using race strategy, if you were a small business, so if I were a small business, how would I benefit or how would you benefit from the Transcontinental Railroad? All right. So I'm going to see if I can get my little annotate up. Give me a moment. I see if I can make that work. So work on getting my annotation to work. Give me just a minute. I don't see a way that I can annotate it easily, so I'm not going to fuss about it. I I will share in our Google Classroom where I upload this video a copy of the highlighted paper, but I will talk about what we should be highlighting for each one, even though I can't physically highlight it. I might be able to. Wait, got it. Found my highlight. Yay. Okay, perfect. So first, the Transcontinental Railroad is often known as the Internet of its age. So highlight in green the part of the text that states what the Transcontinental Railroad was often known as. Well, that sounds like that matches that. All right, it is not going to let me highlight on here. So if I were highlighting, I would highlight that first line. The first Transcontinental Railroad is often known as the Internet of its age. I would highlight that green. And again, I'll share a document where that on the Google Classroom that has this highlighted so that you have this as a practice when you go ahead and go to do your independent practice. Okay. So the next it says is highlight in red the part of the text that states people and businesses were finding by traveling west. So let's see. So by having a means to communicate from east to west, many people and businesses were finding opportunity. Ooh, so that's what they were finding. They were finding opportunity to grow and profit in ways they never dreamed possible. Ha! So that by having a means to communicate from east to west, many people and businesses were finding opportunity to grow and profit in many ways they never dreamed possible. So I would highlight that in red. So next, the highlight in yellow, the part of the text that states what the railroad allowed people to do they couldn't do before. All right, that I think is a very key piece, which that is awesome. And it talks about that the text states that the railroad allowed people to travel faster and safer. It allowed goods to be shipped across the country in as little as a few days. And then finally, in blue, highlights the part of the text that states what the railroad was a vast improvement from. And I love this one. And that was the vast improvement compared to months of traveling in wagons from East Coast to West. Now, we can't sit for 5 minutes. I can't imagine traveling from East Coast to West Coast. So this is what my paper looks like, and you can see how I've highlighted each thing. And like I said, I'll go ahead and put this in the Google Drive so you can see this when you go to do your independent practice. But I wanted you to have this. Okay, so now we're going to work on the other side. So in the other side, the first thing we're going to do, which is the most important part, is we're going to restate the question. So if you were a small business, how would you benefit from the Transcontinental Railroad? So if, oh, I don't need to highlight now. So I need to highlight if
I were a small business, I would benefit a lot from the Transcontinental Railroad. So how do I know that I would benefit a lot? Well, I'd be able to talk to people. I'd be able to communicate, talk to people, and I'd be able to send my goods really quickly. So I would say that would be so. I would be able to communicate and ship my goods across the country, allowing me to reach more people than ever before. So, how do I know I'm reaching more people than ever before? Hmm. So, I would say the text states, and we want to go ahead and make sure we quote it by having um, means to communicate from east to west, many people and businesses were finding opportunity to grow in and profit. So profit, make money in ways they never dreamed. Okay. So explain why did I pick that? So I have to explain my answer. So what does this all mean? So I should say this shows that I would benefit I would profit greatly from this shows that my small business would benefit greatly from the Transcontinental Railroad. There we go. All right. So you're going to have this as your tool. So I am going to move on to the next slide because I want you guys to see what the next slide will entail. So we are going to work on the independent practice, which is the same thing, going green in Google Classroom. You can do it there. I also have sent home a printed copy either way. You can get that done. And then you'll see that the quiz on the race strategy is here. And once you click the quiz by filling in, um, by go ahead and clicking the link, then I will be able to see how you do on it. So thank you so much for taking a moment to go ahead and check out the race strategy lesson for our Vid Day. And if you have any questions, you know how to find Mrs. H. Thanks so much.